Welcome back to Exponential Africa, where the sun is shining. We're at the SingularityU Costa Rica Summit, and we are fortunate enough to be sitting with Nathaniel Calhoun, who's a Singularity University faculty chair on global grand challenges. Nathaniel has had an amazing career. He's lived in over 50 African countries. He consults with governments, with banks, with corporations on how do you create innovative change, looking at new business models, new forms of money, and cooperatives. Nathaniel, thanks so much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. I always enjoy talking with you.
So Nathaniel, tell us a little bit about your background. You've lived all around the world. You've focused on education. What really makes you tick?
I did get started in education, classroom education in West Africa, the Middle East, and a little bit in the United States. I was always teaching at very privileged schools. And it started to bother me that the gifts that I was bringing to education were only reaching a small group of people. That's what got me interested in technology, because I saw technology as a way to reach a lot more students. I got into that online mentoring, started to get some contracts through UNICEF, and then started looking beyond the walls of the school and beyond the confines of the Ministry of Education, looking to people that are in the informal economy, people after school age that don't have many opportunities, and really started grappling with the future of work, about 15, 20 years ago. In a variety of a lot of different sub-Saharan African countries. And I'm still now really focused on the types of business models and the types of uses of technology that can help advantage people who are kind of left out of the economy today.
And how are some of those technologies helping people, like in terms of cooperatives? What is a cooperative and how does it work?
So cooperatives have been around for a really long time, different forms of human cooperation as long as you could go back. But the Rochdale Principles were signed in Manchester, UK back in the 1800s. And they commit cooperatives to aligning with certain things, like having voluntary and open membership, being democratic, economic participation of the members, continuing education, and so forth. So in their truest form, they're just a set of principles that make sure that the way that something is held between people is as equitable as possible, and that the people are constantly advanced by being part of it, as opposed to the command and control structure of a C corporation that can happily send all of the power of choices, all of the power of financial gain up to the board and the executive level, and neglect or even automate like the lower tiered structure. So in your country, South Africa, it's one of many countries where cooperatives don't have the best reputation. People can think of them as bureaucratic or corrupt or somehow slow or inefficient. And people say the same things about government or about democracy as a whole. It's funny, nobody says that about corporations. They don't say the idea of a corporation is broken. They assume a corporation can and will innovate. There's absolutely nothing preventing cooperatives and government from innovating at a similarly fast pace. And they are innovating like that all around the world. So cooperatives are doing that now in ways that are going to be profoundly disruptive to normal business.
Is there a rise in cooperatives in today's time because of technology and because of these new platforms that are allowing people to work together, from varying distances and places?
Yeah, I do think that we're seeing a rise in the cooperative sector, at least in any number of countries. Part of the reason is cooperatives last longer. Whenever you ask a room full of people, like if I start a business today, what's the likelihood that my business has failed 2 years from now? Everybody says, 85%, 90%. We know it's the strong majority of businesses will fail. Cooperatives are much more likely to succeed. It can be that they're 10 times more likely to succeed, or they're just 30% more likely. It depends on the industry and the country. But they have a distinct advantage in their survivability, which means over time, their representation within a given economy should grow, right? Because they're not dying as fast. And now we're starting to create them with greater frequency. We have accelerators that are built especially to accelerate cooperatives. And we have new funding mechanisms that are coming in to fund cooperatives. That had always been a sticking point before, because venture capital wants to take not just your profits, but some of your voting power. They want to control how you operate. You can't do that with a cooperative. You would cease being a cooperative. So there's new platforms like co-op.exchange, which are designed to help people who believe in cooperatives or who think that there's revenue to be generated from cooperatives to invest in them simply through like an application that's probably on like a blockchain backbone.
Oh, well, I love the whole concept of this cooperative. It's not just about the top layer, it's about the entire supply chain and about making it equitable, like you said.
Yeah.
What are some of the other new business models you're seeing that are coming out?
Well, I'll stay with the kind of cooperative sector for a minute because one of the things that cooperatives typically didn't have to their advantage was like economies of scale or network effects. And so they could be outcompeted by companies that could be pushing a brand all over the place. Because if you are in a dairy cooperative in Botswana and I'm in a dairy cooperative in South Africa, what do we need from each other? Probably not much, right? Like, why would we have the same brand? We don't need it, right? But now that cooperatives are starting to build and share digital infrastructure with each other, they have a reason to franchise. And so we've actually seen this with house cleaners in New York City. They were very underpaid, technically like low-skilled job area. They cooperativized and gave themselves a brand, raised their standard of living and raised their profile in the economy. But then they created a digital platform for acquiring new customers and keeping track of their business.
Amazing.
Now they're reaching out to other groups of house cleaners in other states around the US and saying, do you want to use our digital infrastructure? Because if you do, you can be a franchise of us, a cooperative. And they have an entirely different franchise structure, but then that becomes like a really powerful vehicle for empowerment for people at a level of labor that hasn't been advantaged in a very long time. And it's sophisticated because it's using digital tech.
I mean, that's so interesting to hear about all these that's giving the underprivileged or the disadvantaged a new way of rising up, which is really exciting. What are some of the new forms of money? You mentioned new forms of money.
Yeah. So that's a good one because like one way that you can become more resilient is to own more of the businesses that you operate in or own more of the pieces of the economy around you. One of the things that we're using all the time is money, and we don't own that, right? Maybe our Federal Reserve owns it. They're printing it when they feel like it. They're putting the interest when they feel like it. There's a big move now to create complementary or social or local currencies, brand new forms of money that operate either just within a certain locality or just within a certain industry or just within a certain cooperative, right? And so we're in Costa Rica. There's a Costa Rican company called Cambiatus, which came out of the Global Solutions Program at GSP, or indirectly. Yeah. One of the things that they help to do is to create these complementary currencies for people who are kind of in the same industry. So here, there's all these shop owners. They own like little, convenience stores that sell smaller than a supermarket, bigger than a stand. They created a currency, a digital currency for these folks, and they call it like their pools, because they're pulperias and now they have pools. Wow. And so they can spend these with each other. That means even if this economy goes into some kind of recession, and even if these people are doing less business than before, they still have a level of liquidity amongst one another.
Incredible.
Yeah, it buffers you from some of the macroeconomic kind of shocks that ripple through the global system now and then. And if you take that one step forward and you're like, okay, would it be beneficial to you if you were routinely transacting in like 5 different digital currencies? Let's say there's one that's based on your neighborhood, there's one that's based on the football team that you support, there's one that's based on where you shop.
So interesting.
All of them are insulated from other shocks.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think we've run out of time.
Cool.
But there you heard it from Nathaniel, new forms of money, cooperatives. We didn't get to touch on global grand challenges. We'll have to bring him back for that. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Make sure to like and subscribe to our page. Nathaniel, thanks so much.
Cheers, man.